It's a blowout. 8th inning, 10-3. Bases are loaded for Verlander, who waits on a 3-0 pitch. He swings, and it's a high fly ball. Deep center field. It is gone. Home run. And a huge bat flip to celebrate. All right, Ben, start the show already.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Flippin' Bats. This one is going to be a blast. Ian Kinsler is joining me. The guy is an absolute stud. I got to know him from his time in Detroit, but he played many, many years in Texas with the Tigers, won a World Series with the Red Sox, and he's now involved with a bat company called Warstic, which is awesome. I have swung it myself. He's been involved there for a long time, but man, has it changed big time. So this is going to be a blast of a conversation. I'm excited to talk to him all about his career. I'm sure he won't love it, but the 2011 World Series was one of the best of all time. Talking to him about that. So without further ado, let's welcome him in now, Ian Kinsler. All right, I am pumped to be joined now by Ian Kinsler, stud baseball player for many years, one of the greats, also co-owner of Warstic. We're going to get all into that. We're going to talk about his career. Ian, I'm pumped to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see you too.
Yeah, you too, dude. So I want to start first with your baseball career. And one of the things that's right around the corner is the World Baseball Classic. And if I'm not mistaken, you're going to manage in it this year for Team Israel. You played in it the last time we had it, I think, in 2017. So World Baseball Classic, your opinion around it. How awesome is it as a player to play in this event?
Well, to have the experience of playing in it in 2017 and then winning it with Team USA was a tremendous experience. It's very much a playoff atmosphere. It means so much to the players when they wear the jerseys of their home country or whoever they're representing. It just means so much to them, and to be a part of it, to experience it, the energy, the environment was just incredible. And it's really, the WBC is really, really taken hold, and the players have taken notice, and you see that by who's signing up to play for Team USA and the Dominican and Puerto Rico and Venezuela. It's just star-studded. So it's a great tournament, and I think there's going to be a lot of people paying attention to it.
And now you're going to be managing in it for Team Israel. Are you nervous to be a manager?
I think so. I don't even know what to expect. I'm sure the itch will be there to grab a bat and try to jump in the box, but managing is a different perspective, and hopefully I have some guys around me with some experience. I asked Brad Awesomeness, I asked Jerry and Aaron to be a part of it. Kevin Youkilis is going to be the hitting coach. So there's going to be some guys with some great experience that I can lean on a little bit. And I just think it's going to be a great tournament, super fun. It's a sprint. It's like a 2-week tournament at max. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome, man. You might need to strap it on and play for your squad, because Ian, you were an all-time great, man. You were so good, and multi-time All-Star, multi-time Gold Glove winner, and it was always so fun watching you from afar. And then obviously you end up in Detroit and getting to know you and see your career play out there. And you played for a long time, and I think you debuted back in 2006, I think it is. And your first at bat, I want to ask you about that, because your first at bat is off of Curt Schilling. I mean, what do you remember about that day, that experience, and finally becoming a big leaguer?
I mean, I just remember my knees shaking. Everyone says it, but it's true. Your knees are just like, you can't control it. It's you go through your whole routine that you're used to. You step out of the box, you take a couple deep breaths, you try to stick to the routine as best you know it, try to get rid of the nerves, and they won't go away. And then obviously facing Curt Schilling the night before, I didn't sleep much, just kind of dreaming and visualizing what that was going to be like. It didn't help much. The nerves were still there, but the first at bat turned out to be successful. So it's something I'll never forget. I actually, there was 2 outs when I got my hit. The next batter flew out to the outfield, and so I was running the bases with 2 outs. Got past third base. Curt Schilling was walking off the field and said, "Hey, way to go, kid!" Like a super vet move. So that is something I'll always remember.
That's really cool. So you played in Texas for a long time, and one of my favorites to ever watch play the game was Adrian Beltre, and you got to play with him for a few years there. Your careers overlapped. I need to know one of the things we hear about Adrian Beltre, aside from the fact that he's a great baseball player, is that he hates his head being rubbed. How true is that? Was that an actual thing that everybody really was conscious about?
Yeah, that's an actual thing. Everyone was cautious, very cautious when it came to touching Adrian's head. Elvis had it down. I mean, he was the king of ripping that helmet off, getting a little head rub, and getting out of there as fast as possible. So Elvis was the king. He was the guy to always take the chance, and he got slugged a couple times. But yeah, Adrian hated that.
How much do you learn from a guy like that, an all-time great? You come in as a rookie and you get to play alongside him for a few years. I mean, how beneficial was Adrian Beltre to your career?
He was super beneficial. At that time, we were, kind of close to the same level. Obviously, we were playing in the same infield. Adrian's a Hall of Famer and a perennial All-Star, so he was obviously a little bit above me as far as that goes. But I've just learned, honestly, defensively so much from him. He always seemed to be standing in the right spot. He always seemed to be making the right plays. And I was constantly trying to pick his brain about it. And honestly, he was the first. So I grew up playing shortstop, was turned into a second baseman. And he was the first one to tell me, like, it's okay to move back on the ball. I was always a guy to attack the ball and move forward. And I asked him after one season, I said, hey, what should I work on this offseason? If there's one thing that you see that's glaring, what would it be? What would you tell me? And he said, you need to practice moving back away from the ball to get a better hop, because you have so much time at second base. And I mean, it sounds so simple, but usually the Hall of Famers are able to keep it simple and still perform at a high level.
So that's his advice to you as a second baseman, because you have so much time there to get a guy at first, that you could afford the time to step back and make it easier on yourself. So to do that.
Right. And my arm was pretty good. I mean, I played shortstop, so my arm was, probably a borderline average, maybe plus, like a little bit better than average at shortstop. I didn't have like a bazooka,
right,
but it was good enough to make plays at second base and move back on the ball and give myself a little bit more of a chance with range.
Cool. This one might be hard for you to talk about, but 2011, one of the greatest World Series of all time. Objectively, I'm sure you can agree, but it's probably tough in your memory. But what do you remember about that World Series when you look back about playing in it? The David Freese in Game 6. What were your thoughts, your emotions when that happened? What is the locker room like after that Game 6 loss? I mean, when you look back on 2011, what are your thoughts?
I don't really like to think about it.
Yeah.
No, it was historic. I mean, it's one of the greatest World Series of all time, and we ended up on the wrong side of it. But the locker room was intense. It was very, very tension filled. They were trying to get the champagne out as quick as possible. The locker rooms were getting, the stuff to protect the locker rooms.
Oh no!
The lockers
that was still up when y'all got back in there.
Yeah, there's like half of them were still up, and they were trying to tear them down, and like it was pretty intense. But that team was really good at moving on quickly, and we all understood that there was still another game to be played. I mean, Game 6 was a freeze game, and there was still another game in Game 7. We felt like we were the better team up to that point. We'd been so good with adversity that whole year. We had so much character on that team that we were able to move past that and get ready for Game 7. And they just beat us in Game 7. I think Game 6 is obviously the historic game and the game that everyone remembers. But, Game 7 was more of just a regular ball game. They just beat us. And, we were ready to play. Ron Washington had us ready, and that was it. They took it to us.
I love Ron. What a great guy. How awesome was it playing for Ron Washington?
He's the best. He was so perfect for that club. Every spring training, he had part of his speech. Every spring training, he would say to the team, he'd say, he said, this is your locker room. You guys do whatever you want in the locker room. as long as the fire department and the police department doesn't come in here, we're good. So that was his speech to the club every year, and he let us do our thing. He loved baseball. He was always ready, always prepared every day, and yeah, he was perfect for that club.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always loved watching him manage, seeing his emotion in the dugout when something would go great. He'd like hit the railing. It was so cool. I think at one point in your career you played for a short amount of time for Buck Showalter, right? Is that true? So
Yeah,
now
my rookie year.
That's right. So Justin is now in New York where Buck is, and I've heard nothing but great things about him. But from your perspective, Buck Showalter as a manager, what do you have to say about him?
As a manager, he will present things to you that you've never thought about. He knows the ins and outs of baseball better than anyone that I've ever been around. He knows every rule. He knows how to manipulate the rules. He knows how to prepare for certain situations that you think would never come up in a baseball game, and for some reason they just happen to come up. He's just highly intelligent when it comes to baseball, and I still communicate with him about rules of the game and things that have happened. I don't know if you remember last year, there was I think Scherzer was going for his 200th win or 300th win, something like that, in Yankee Stadium. And there was that crazy play with Rizzo. It was like like he stepped off to try to appeal the play at third, and Rizzo took off to second. And there was this big controversy. And so I text Buck and said, "Hey, what are the rules?" That was a bad idea, because then it's like a 45-minute conversation on one rule. But yeah, Buck is super intelligent, and he's a great manager.
That's awesome. I do remember that play because it was wild, because basically Rizzo took off so that they would go tag him, and then the appeal would be null and void and the run would count, but they got him out, right? That play?
Exactly.
Yeah, that was wild. 2013, you're involved in a huge trade. You've been with the Rangers your entire career. You're involved in a blockbuster. That's how you end up in Detroit, playing for the Detroit Tigers. As a guy that had played your whole career in Texas and come up, like through that system, what is it like being traded at that point in your career in such a big trade like that? What do you remember about the day you got traded?
It was pretty emotional. Like you said, I was drafted by the Rangers. It felt like a second family to me. I loved playing for the Rangers, and it felt a little like betrayal. And I was pretty emotional in the media and probably said some things that I regret now that I didn't really think through. But that's how I felt at the time, and I let it be known. But then moving to Detroit was a blessing for me and my family. I mean, it kind of jump started my career again. I did not play well for the Rangers in 2013, and kind of opened my eyes a little bit to and a little bit more of self-reflection on what I need to improve on, what I need to get better at. And then obviously going to a team with just a stacked roster, a team that won the division 3 years in a row. It was a perfect place for me, and I loved my 4 years there. My family loved the 4 years there, and Detroit was special. I wish I could have stayed there longer, for sure.
How, looking back, I mean, I look at some of those teams of old, and you were a part of them. Like, how crazy is it looking back, being a part of a team with Miggy, Justin, Max, Victor, Torrey Hunter, yourself? Like, was that the greatest team you've ever played on?
Looking back, it's pretty darn close. I mean, we had Nick Castellanos and JD Martinez, Austin, Miggy, Victor. We had our rotation was like Justin, Max, Parcello, I think like David Price, Anibal Sanchez, something like that. Like it was ridiculous. That was a very talented team, and we got swept in the first round of the playoffs in 2014, and never really had a chance to kind of get into a rhythm in the postseason. We weren't playing well going in, and that first series against Baltimore was tough, but that team talent-wise was up there with the best I've been a part of.
I remember it well. The Delman Young, bases loaded.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was tough. When you look back on your career, Ian, you had a great career, and it was kind of, you were in Texas, Detroit, and then at the end you were at multiple places. When you look back on your great career, what would you say is the favorite moment of your baseball career?
I don't know. That's tough. I think the pinnacle of baseball is always winning the World Series. So 2018, I was traded from Anaheim to Boston in the middle of the season and just got to join that roller coaster ride, that just magical season in Boston and win a World Series with the Red Sox in 18. That was a special run. That team was incredible. Just nothing went wrong really. And when it did, it always seemed to turn the next inning so quickly to a positive for that team. It was just a magical run, and to be a part of it and to reach the pinnacle of the sport was super special.
Who is the toughest pitcher that you ever faced?
I hate this question because it's like it could be anybody, you know, like any given night. If a guy's on, it's just so hard to hit in the big leagues. But the guy that always had my number, who just broke so many of my bats, was Corey Kluber. He really dominated me. And I can remember one time he had my number so bad that I swear he was doctoring the ball. He was cheating or something was happening. So he punched me out for however many times in a row. And I just walking off the field, I'm just like screaming at him to quit cheating, quit cheating. And Perez was behind the plate and Kluber was on the mound. They were both kind of just staring at me like, what's wrong with this guy, But he had my number. He owned me.
That's incredible. So now you're done playing now, but you still work in baseball. You're special assistant for the Padres. Your exact title is what? Special assistant for baseball operations and player development. Big title.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It's a long title. But the Padres, I mean, how cool is it for you being at least a part of an organization that appears to be so committed to winning these days? I mean, what are your thoughts on what the Padres are doing right now?
It's incredible. And I don't know the last time you were in that stadium, but it is electric in there. It's
Playoffs
sold out
this year.
Yeah, exactly. The place is in a great spot. The city's in a great spot as far as baseball is concerned. And, it was always, the player would always say, let's say 5 years ago, would always say, man, San Diego would be such a great place to play. But the product on the field just wasn't quite competitive enough to draw people there. And AJ and Peter Seidler have really turned that thing around and brought in so much talent, and obviously bringing in Bob Melvin has kind of just solidified everything. And, Peter just wants a championship for that city so bad. And the moves that they're making obviously shows that. So to be a part of that, it's exciting. It's fun. And it makes conversations a lot easier when you're talking about free agents and roster construction, when the owner's all in. So it's a really fun place to be.
I don't know where you're at physically these days, but with all this money getting thrown around in free agency, it's got to be tempting to come back.
Yeah, it's tempting in my wildest dreams. I haven't picked up anything heavier than a fungo in a while. So,
speaking of bats, we got to talk about Warstic. You're co-owner of Warstic. You partnered with Ben Jenkins and Jack White. And I guess my first question to you would be, how did this all come to be? What made you want to be involved with a bat company?
It kind of all happened organically. I mean, I met Ben through a friend of a friend in 2015. And, as a professional player, a bat is very difficult to make. You can tell the difference between a really good quality bat and one that's just a little off and doesn't feel right. The weight's not right. And it's pretty obvious right away when you pick it up. And when I met Ben, I loved the character and I loved the logo. Super simple. Aesthetically speaking, it's a great looking brand.
Yeah.
And then it just came down to the product and picking up the bat. I was like, man, this feels really good. Let me go to the cage and check this thing out. And, the first day that I hit with it, I couldn't really tell the difference between, the bat that I was using the previous season and this new Warstic bat. And we just kind of hit it off from there. And then getting Jack involved was a little unusual.
Yeah.
He's a huge baseball fan, baseball historian, really. And he's from Detroit, huge Detroit Tigers fan. So I met him in spring training while I was playing for the Tigers. And Ben was giving me this whole pitch about Warstic, and he just happened to mention Jack's name in this pitch. And I said, hey, I know Jack. Let me see how interested he is in this company. And emailed him, and he hit me right back. And in the next week, me and Ben flew to Nashville and pitched to him to become an investor along with me. And that's how it all happened. It happened really quick. And it's us three, and it's been a crazy process, and it's been a lot of fun to learn about, business side of things, and then also, have that business be part of baseball. So it's been a lot of fun being part of that company and representing Warstic for sure.
I think I remember right after, because you were still playing when you started using Warstic and partnered there, correct? So I think I remember a spring training when you started using it, and then Jack came down to Lakeland and performed in the clubhouse or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Were you there for that?
I was there. I wasn't in the clubhouse for it, but I was there when he was talking to everybody, and apparently he performed and everybody loved it.
Yeah. He went straight acoustic. They had all kinds of weird instruments in there, and they were performing all these old school songs. They were covering some songs, and Jack played a couple of his own songs. It was pretty cool in the Tigers clubhouse. It was, I know he really appreciated it. He had a blast doing it, and it's cool when that happens in spring training. When something like that happens, it's always breaks up the day and gives you something to talk about for the next week.
Were you nervous at all to use, because you when you became part of that company, you took control of it and you used the bats in Major League Baseball. Were you at all nervous to make the switch from whatever you used to use? Was it Marucci? Did you swing Marucci?
It was Louisville.
So to make the switch from Louisville to Warstic in actual games, were you nervous to do that, or were you that comfortable with the bat?
I was a little nervous at first. They were able to copy my Louisville pretty much exact. And then I was able to use it that off season before spring training started and make sure that I felt comfortable with it. But then taking it into a game, it's always a little different. You just don't know how to perform in the cage. It's just different than taking it into the game. And when I just remember my first at bat, when I walked up, I honestly couldn't tell the difference between the feels of my Louisville the year before and the Warstic. And then my first at bat, I got a hit, but it just snapped my bat in half.
Oh, no.
I damned myself and just broke my bat and hit this little blooper over the pitcher's head and beat it out at first. And I was like, I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, I'm on first, but from that point forward, I was pretty comfortable with it, and it was a pretty easy transition.
What's the process like? Is it an easy process to get a bat approved for Major League Baseball? Because you can't just go up there and swing anything. And obviously, I think, were you the first guy to ever swing Warstic in Major League Baseball?
Yeah.
So what's that process like of getting it approved? It can't be easy.
No, it's not easy. I mean, MLB, they're pretty strict on who they allow to be approved with equipment that goes onto the field, and the insurance and being approved by MLB it's a tough thing. You have to go through this whole process where they test your bats and look at the paint, look at the coating that you're using. They do all kinds of things. How deep the cup is at the top, just what the handle looks like. There's all kinds of things that you have to do to get approved. But once you get approved every year, you kind of have to take just little steps to make sure that you stay that way. But it's not as bad as you would think, I guess, but there are definitely hoops that you have to jump through when it comes to getting equipment on the field.
What would you say makes Warstic different? What sets you guys apart from every other bat company out there?
I think it's just the feeling of what you feel when you use the bat and the messaging that we use. Our message is it's not the weapon, it's the warrior. And I think that's so true, especially when you look at youth sports or even big league guys. It's all wood, right? There's not that big of a difference between one wood bat and another wood bat. And same with youth sports. There's not that big of a difference between one aluminum bat and another aluminum bat. They're all pretty much made at the same factory. And the differences are so slight. It's like NASCAR racing. So, our message is that it's not necessarily the bat, it's the person holding the bat and the mindset of that person. And so there's a feeling that goes into the bat. And I think that's what makes us different. I think people really, really gravitate towards that, really love that. and it seems to be working. It's been a lot of fun.
I will say, one, the logo is sick, and I went on the website last night and watched I think the video is like the Warstic Creed, right? So I'm watching this video. The uniforms are sick. The logo's so sick. The video is sick. I wanted to run through a brick wall after watching this because, like you said, they're all like, it's your whole thing is it's the warrior, not the, or it's the, it's the warrior, not the weapon. And then they're all talking about like going to war with the war stick, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to play again. Like, get me back in the batter's box. It's all pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, Ben and Christine are the two people that run the company pretty much. Mike Butler also, but they just do an incredible job with marketing and the ideas that they have, the videos that we shoot, the conversations that we have. It's more about the mental side of the game and the grit and we have a shirt that just says grit on it. We have a shirt that just says battle on it. And that's really what it comes down to in sports, that nowadays analytics and TrackMan and all these different numbers that you can look at and get spit at, and people are trying to hit like Aaron Judge and do all this different stuff, and it's like at the end of the day, it just comes down to grit and what you are capable of doing with your mind, and mental toughness is so important, at least in our opinion, and that's kind of how we attract people and what we lean on.
Are there current big leaguers that swing it?
There are. I mean, Justin Upton swing bat. I don't know if he officially retired, but I think he's pretty much done. And then we've had so many people swing it off and on. I mean, Josh Donaldson swung it, Bryce Harper swung it, Miguel Cabrera swung it, Nick Castellanos swung it for a while. And that's the thing when you ask me about the switch from Louisville to Warstic with big league guys, you really got to get them in the offseason. It's hard to get a guy in the season change bats just because if they've got a good feeling with a certain bat, if they've had a couple of good games with it, it's really hard to get a guy to switch. They might take it out there for a couple of games. But we've had a lot of guys use the bat in the big leagues. And, right now it's kind of what we're doing, is just kind of feeling it out, letting guys use it. And hopefully some of these guys love it.
Since you've been involved with the company, how have you seen it evolve from day one of you being there to where it is now? How has Warstic changed?
Well, when I first got involved with it, Ben was running it out of his basement. He was just literally family operated. I would go to his house and go down to his basement. He had all the shirts and the batting gloves and the bats down there, and that was where he's storing everything. And now we have our own headquarters in Deep Elm in Dallas. And we have a wood bat shop. You can go watch a wood bat get made and paint it, custom paint it any way you want. We have a coffee shop and a batting cage. We got a speakeasy down in the basement, so you can have bands. Jack White opened a show down there. Like it's the progression of the company. It started out just as a wood bat company when I first invested in it, and now we have aluminum bats. We got surfboards, pickleball rackets. We have incredible fielding gloves. There's fly rods, like all the lacrosse
so
sticks.
Cool.
Yeah, all kinds of different things that Ben has now developed. So it's been a crazy process, but it's been a fun one.
I gotta get down there soon to check out the new spot. When I come down to Dallas, I'm coming.
Yeah, let me know. Absolutely. We'll have you down there for sure.
You need to, before we finish up, you got to tell the story you were telling me right before we started of the Sandlot games that you guys play. I think it was once a year, and Jack playing baseball. It was all so cool. So it's once a year you guys have like a Sandlot pickup game, basically?
Once a year in Dallas. So normally we try to follow around Jack's touring schedule. Mm-hmm. He tours worldwide, but when he's in the States, we'll try to line up a Warstic Sandlot game the day before his show or the day of his show, but during the day we'll play the Sandlot game, and then that night we'll invite the other team and everybody to come to Jack's
that's so
concert.
Cool.
But he loves it. He loves baseball, like we said, and his position is first base. He's got to be hitting third. He's got to be hitting
third. I can't imagine his swing is the best out there.
He's figured out a way to make solid contact every time. I wouldn't say it's the best swing, but like he's figured out a way to do it. That's kind of what Jack does. he just figure out a way to make something work. I don't know if you've seen him like nail in wires into a wooden pole and make a guitar out of it. Like this guy just figures out ways to make things work, and that's kind of how his baseball swing is. He'll find the barrel every time, and then at first base he rarely drops the ball. Like he does a good job out there. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, these Sandlot games, we have pictures and videos and stuff, and we get pretty good crowds out there. We'll have a live band, like Jack's band will play during the game. We'll have them behind home plate, and bring out some good food, good music. Usually a lot of people show up, so it's a fun experience.
That's really cool. Did you ever imagine your life would lead you to being involved in a bat company with a Grammy Award-winning musician?
No, never thought that.
Incredible. Well, Ian, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This has been a blast. Everybody should go check out Warstic. I swung it every once in a while in spring training. It's great. So awesome that it's going so well. I'm definitely coming. When I come down to Dallas, I'm coming in. But thank you so much for joining me, man. You're always a friend of the pod now, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, Ben.
And good luck in the WBC.
That's right. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. See ya. All right, I just wanted to thank Ian again for joining me. What a blast. That was great. I was cracking up, especially when he was telling the story about facing Corey Kluber, and he just screamed at him to stop cheating because he couldn't hit him. That was great. But everybody should check out Warstic as well. If you play baseball, check it out. They truly are great bats. Like I said, I used them sometimes in spring training, and it really is a great feel to it. So if you play baseball, check out Warstic. And apparently if you surf, fish, whatever you do, check it out. But that was a blast. Really awesome talking to him. And like I said, I got to know him from his time in Detroit when Justin was there. And he's just such a great dude. And you could obviously tell that from just listening to him. So I wanted to thank him again. And thank you all for listening. Make sure wherever you're listening, you hit the subscribe button. Apple, Spotify, wherever it may be. Subscribe to Flippin' Bats. It's free. It's easy. And it helps, so do it. And also follow along on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and you can watch every single episode on YouTube as well, at Flippin' Bats Pod for all of them. This one has been a blast. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time for another episode of Flippin' Bats. Peace.